friends.
I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
Welcome back, Screamers, to another round of Suns and Shadows cast. I am Jeff, also known as number 3, joined by Kevin, who is number 12, maybe, who's the frequent asshole in the Prisoner TV show that we're covering from the 60s, starring Patrick McGoohan. Kevin, you've never seen this before. What did you think of this one?
Wow, this was a lot to chew on.
A lot to unpack with this bad boy, wasn't it?
Yeah, like we just went from really kind of lowbrow, funny, haha, to wow, I really got to kind of figure out what the hell just happened here.
Yeah, I smacked you right upside the forehead with this one, didn't I?
I was not expecting this. I mean, I love like British spy type stuff. I'll even watch Operation Kid Brother, but I'd never seen anything like, say, like in like Flint or this before. So like my only real expertise is James Bond, which is no expertise at all, I guess. And Austin Powers, because now I'm like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, well, this is fresh off of Patrick doing Danger Man, also known as, or was it Danger Man's aka Secret Agent? And he was ready to do something a little bit different. And this was basically one of his babies, according to certain aspects of history, that this was what he wanted to do next. And this helped get that done. Was he did the final season of Danger Man, and it got him to be able to do this because the producers were like, okay, if you can at least do this, we'll help you get started with that. And that's how The Prisoner resulted. And this also was around the time of like the Avengers. So there was definitely a spy genre going on BBC television at the time. I don't know if this was strictly BBC. I didn't really gauge that. I'm only aware of it from like a few years, like when I was in college, this came out on like DVD from A&E, Arts and Entertainment TV channel. I don't know what that's called now, if it's still called A&E. I don't have cable, but I had those DVDs when they first came out. Fucking awesome, but everything was out of episode order, so I kind of had to figure it out.
Oh, no.
Later on, after I sold the DVD set, my beautiful wife picked me up the Blu-ray set, which is now very highly sought after, and so I got to enjoy my Blu-rays. And some things might still feel a little out of order, but they're largely in proper order this time. But it's a hell of a show. Okay, for anybody listening in, if you have not seen this show, this is from the 60s. Parts of it feel like Batman 66, but serious at the same time. You don't get the pow, the kablam, the kabooms. You don't have that showing up on the screen. But the music at times, the colors, the atmosphere, it's very whimsical at times while making you scream like, what are you doing to this fucking guy? It's very cerebral. It's very metaphorical. There's a lot of allegory going on in this show. There's a lot going on in a show from this era that'll make your head just explode with, what the fuck am I actually watching?
And it's hard to answer that question even once you've finished watching it.
Multiple times.
Yeah, like I felt like I didn't know if walking into this show or walking into this episode, I'd be able to do a really decent review for it because I had no idea if I should watch it a second time.
That's a good point.
Like, gosh, it was hard to tell one, remember what happened in what episode, but it was hard to tell at what points where he was in control, where he wasn't in control, where they had him,
right?
Who they were. There was just, again, to your point, so much happening. But one of the things that I really liked, stupidly so, I guess, compared to Batman 66, was the wardrobe. It was so silly. Silly.
Now, was it more the people of the village, or was it just like what number 6 was into, because you never really get his name. You get maybe it's like some code name tips later on, but you never really get his real name. But was it number 6 and like the guardians and the prisoners, or what was it with the wardrobe with you?
It was like number 2's guys. They'd all be dressed almost like the Penguins bad guys or henchmen, where they had the striped shirts or the berets. The ladies all had capes on with berets. It was just very Italian, I guess, maybe in a way. Is that what it was? Beatnik?
French kiss.
Yeah, there was a lot of Beatnik episodes in this. There was certainly that.
Yeah, there was. And it never failed to like keep the story moving either. But like at time, some of that wardrobe choices, some of the set designs was just, it's so wild that you're like, is this even real? Like, could this literally be happening? Or is this something in his head that he's doing to himself the entire time?
Yeah. And that question again comes up because it shows them doing that to him, putting those images and thoughts into his head. I didn't expect seeing this, that there was going to be an episode, it maybe more than one at all, that they were going to kick his ass. Like, I thought he was just going to get them for this entire series. And I told my wife, I'm like, I don't know how interesting this is going to be throughout this entire thing. If it's just the same thing over and over again, how often can you escape?
Right.
And he doesn't, I mean, he does escape quite a few times. He tries to escape almost every week, but even when it's similar, the mental torture or brainwashing, it's always different and it's always confusing. And you always need to kind of go back and rewind certain parts. Like, wait, what just happened here?
Yep. You think it's going to paint by the numbers after the first like 4 or 5 episodes. Like, oh, okay, this is going to be the typical formula for this show. And then they start messing with you. And then you start getting different formulas or different flips arounds. You actually get a number 2 that's so psychotic that pisses him off so much that he turns right around. He's like, you know what? You're an asshole, and I'm going to bring you down a notch instead of finding them to be, you know, kind of cerebral counterparts to him, where he's like, I have to defeat you one way or the other. Whereas in one particular episode, he just goes out of his way to completely fuck a number 2 over, and he reduces him to a crying little baby at the end, screaming, I can't do this anymore. Number 2 needs to be replaced.
And he had him resign himself.
Yep. You will call number 1 and you will resign yourself.
Yeah.
Bitch.
And that was the number 2 that was very much supposed to be a Gestapo.
Yeah. Total psycho.
Yeah. Like, he had multiple times slapped number 2 to torture him and been reprimanded for it. He had subordinates that were encouraging him to go against number 1, and he would do that. And 6 just brought him down to this crying, pathetic state. And it's like, you wanted to watch it all over again because motherfucker deserved it so bad.
I just love that. That's episode number 10, and it's utterly fantastic. The name of that one is Hammer into Anvil, for anybody listening, and it's one of my absolute favorite episodes. We'll get into this a little bit later when we do our 6-pack. Spoiler alert, that's one of mine. But I just utterly love it because he basically, that's the point, he got pissed off so much by what happened in the beginning of the episode that you want, like, man, when this guy wants to fuck somebody up, he fucks them up. Like, nobody's on par with him at all. And that, what does that tell you about the rest of the number 2s? Because they alternate number 2s multiple times throughout this show. But like, what does that tell you about one in particular? Pissed him off just enough to reduce that guy to a fucking little baby that the rest of them, it's very competitive with. And sometimes he wins by the skin of his teeth. Sometimes it's pretty decisive. But like, they threw that one in there probably just to show everybody, hey, piss him off enough, you push him too far enough, he will own this freaking place. And it kind of pays off in the end too, in my opinion.
I think so. And if we didn't mention it previous, the incident that set him off so hard was a woman was being questioned by this number 2 in command, this Gestapo type figure. They wanted her to rat out her husband, who was also a spy, and
Right.
she wouldn't. And were they restraining her in the hospital bed, or she'd gotten up and she was trying to get away. Number 6 had come in and intervened just for a moment, and she got out of the orderly's grasp and jumped out the window, Superman style. Had no regrets whatsoever.
Swan dive.
Yeah. And 6 saw that instead of being able to save this woman, he enabled her to, well, I want to say escape. I don't know if that's the right word.
Well, he saw that number 2 was like not showing like any remorse, like at all. And a lady had just basically killed herself to get away from him. And he's like, the number 2 is just totally straight off, like, whatever. It's just another bug on the windshield kind of like attitude. That's when number 6 looked at him and he's like, all right, that's enough of that shit with you, bro. You're done. It's like, I put up with enough shit around here, but bro, that's sick. You're toast.
Your soul may belong to Jesus, but your ass belongs to me.
Pretty much. I like that. I haven't heard that phrase in a long time.
It was awesome. And the things that he would do was nothing, like leave a box out somewhere. So they thought it was a bomb. And they were so suspicious of him that they were like, oh, he's got a bomb. He must be up to something. And he's just sending Morse code, patty cake, baker's man.
He was so casual about everything. It was so meticulous, so methodical and planned out. My favorite parts were like when he would go into the music store and he listened to the vinyl a few times and write something down after like the 3rd album, then give back the albums. And they were trying to figure out, I don't hear any difference in any of this. And in a different episode later on, there's a little bit of a callback where he goes into a record store, he puts on a record, and he's actually talking to his legitimate boss when he's doing an actual spy gig as a bit of a flashback. And it's super funny because you think, oh, that's just a gag for one episode. You can't take everything you see and not think there's going to be a callback to it later. But just to cycle back around, like there were so many fun moments in that episode where it's like, what is he playing? The blank sheets of paper in the boat. Hey, let's have him tested. And after all these tests, the scientist's like, I gotta take this shit to number 2. This dude is gonna lose his fucking mind because there's nothing going on with these fucking papers.
It was amazing. It was so simple that it was complex for the Nazi guy.
That was just so satisfying, that whole episode. Like, if you like your spy shows, if you haven't checked out The Prisoner, absolutely check it out. Totally skip the quote-unquote remake from like about 10, 12 years ago. Don't even bother. I know who's in it. Great cast. Horrible. Don't do it. Skip it.
Who's in it?
Ian McKellen and Jim Caviezel.
Oh, that one you said. Okay, yeah. That's right.
Because you asked me about that. I'm like, no, don't watch that.
That's right. That was one from 95, I think.
No, it was after that.
Oh.
Like 2009-ish.
See, that's, I would say, one of those things where you can't get lightning in a bottle twice because the 60s was part of the charm of this show.
Well, if you were gonna, because the reason why we're doing this show, it's not really been like ever officially like canceled. British TV shows run a bit differently. Most of them run a series. They're called series over in Europe. They go 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 seasons. Anything more than that's like a mega hit, like Doctor Who, that just keeps the train rolling. And that's just how that goes. But for most of them, it's usually just a couple of series, a couple seasons, and that's basically it. Why we're doing this is largely because there's been a clamor for more. There's unproduced episodes that were turned later into books, comic books, there were scripts that never got put into finished episodes. So there's enough there for us to be like, hey, there was more this show could have done. Clearly, it has an ending, but it's so open-ended while closed at the same. It's rare to get an ending like this to make you feel like that was satisfying. But and you hear that word, but it's like, but there could have been more. Like, ultimately, it probably would have been fine as a 2-season arc. You think you find out who number 1 is, maybe you don't. But that's ultimately the reason why we're covering this show, because it's a great show. It could be remade now. The problem is it needs to be set in the 60s. It cannot be set in the modern day, because then you take out all the modern. If it was set in modern day, there's too many modern conveniences that would have to be there. Cell phones, shit like that, GPS, blah, blah. Then you're basically talking James Bond, Mission Impossible, all that stuff. Set this back in the 60s and honor the spirit of this show, as Patrick McGoohan decided this should be, because this is his baby. He's also the guy we almost got to be James Bond, but it was chosen for Sean Connery because he declined it.
Did he really?
Yes. He thought it was a little too tawdry, a little too much sexual innuendos and things like that. A little too much womanizing.
What?
James Bond. That's what he thought of James Bond, why he declined it.
But
he's very much a Catholic, or was very much a Catholic.
So was I.
Well,
damn.
Let me ask you the question. Do you think he would have made a great James Bond based off of this show?
Fuck no.
I think he would have been fine, but Sean Connery was the right choice to go with.
I think he would have been better than possibly, say, George Lazenby.
Fucker. Fuck you. I like George.
Maybe he would have been better than Timothy Dalton.
Timothy was fine, but I see what you're saying.
I would have liked it better than the Daniel Craig movies.
Yeah, pretty much.
But again, I like that cheekiness, that gimmicky spy gadget gizmo type stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, I think Patrick would have played it a little too serious. Not too much fast and loose.
Yeah.
Not that he couldn't have done it, but I think Sean had a better swagger for the role.
Yes. Yeah. Patrick seemed to be a little bit more of an everyman, where James Bond kind of stuck out like a sore thumb because he was a super spy.
Right. But
people would stop and turn and look at how pretty he was.
Yeah, I agree.
Or just whatever. But number 6, he was more of a military type, I think. He showed a little bit more of that than say Sean Connery did in most of his Bond films.
He definitely had a bit more grit to him too, I want to say.
I think so.
A little scrappier than I can beat anybody's ass as a spy.
Yeah. And he really didn't mind getting into a fight with just about anybody.
No, and he would frequently take on multiple people too.
Yeah, the 3, what could I say, large women with umbrellas that were
they whipped his ass.
Twice.
It's a handicap match. 3 women, large women with an umbrella versus number 6. Who's gonna win? Who's gonna survive?
One umbrella, 2 people. You just had naughty thoughts. That's going to be a whole other 0 point. We're not even on that show. It made me think of like the Penguin just beating the shit out of people with umbrellas and whatnot. Yeah. But a problem I had with this show.
Do tell.
And it's probably because we're far so desensitized now. And there was a lot more killing in James Bond. One, nobody dies until like the very last episode that you see in the show, give or take. Like, there's a few times where he gets put right back onto the island because he failed to kill somebody, like just left them there and knocked out. They get back up and kick his ass. The pirates, basically. I lost it for a second. No, there was no moment of, yes, he's such this bad, kick-ass, wonderful spy. He could have killed the entire island, John Wick style. Like, just have that whole 17 hours be a long stretch of Eurotrash songs like fucking John Wick.
Dude, that'd actually be a pretty dope prisoner movie.
I'd watch it. But seriously, there were some episodes where you're just kind of like, I want him to fucking destroy everybody. Like the episode with the clucking hens with the umbrellas. Like, hen is the best way I could think of describing those ladies. It was very 1940s war propaganda-ish. Like the larger ladies taking care of the smaller ladies. Bullying them, for lack of a better term. Bullies.
I could build a car with my pinky, bitch.
Break my ass with their pinky, too. I'm not going to pick a fight.
No, I get what you're saying. I want to say that he had a bit of a code of honor to him, that he would not like really hit like a woman or anything like that. Like, he drew a thin line about how far he would go. And if he had to take an ass kicking from some women with an umbrella, he'd just take it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, dude, stand up for yourself. Like, you don't have to put up with this shit. Like, most of this island is afraid of you. The other half is like scared to even like talk to you. Like, you could be all by yourself, but like, depending on the situation and what the new number twos would be trying to do, it's like the island was in on it, the island wasn't in on it. It's like there's enough going on to make you wonder, okay, not everybody can be like totally on board, but then finally he gets an episode where there's like several people that are totally on board with an escape. They all work together, they do code words and everything, and at the very end it's like, motherfucker, what did you do? And basically the guy was convinced that number 6 was actually one of the guards for number 2. I'm like, what?
And they screwed over number 6, which screwed over all of them.
Right. It's like, I almost would have wanted, like, thank you, number 6, for the great work. You helped find out all the unworthy ones on this island. Now we know who was borderline trying to escape and wanting out, and now we got them all. So thank you, bitch.
Yeah, right. Well done. Splendid, splendid.
Okay, I gotta admit, that would have been pretty fucking funny if they did that in that episode. Thank you, number 6, for bringing us all the unmutuals or whatever they were called.
Unmutual.
Yeah, thank you for bringing us all the unmutuals. We will now dealt with them appropriately, and you could go and drink your tea. Thank you so much, number 6.
Well, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, without outright saying it. I'm like, man, you just fucked everybody over who still had any sort of like pushback against the island.
Yeah, like, he's leading us really well. He must be one of them.
Oh, God.
And like, everyone on this island, assuming it's an island, is a spy. And there are some really strange people that you wouldn't think to be a spy, like little old ladies. They have convalescent homes for spies.
Oh, and little kids in certain episodes.
Yes.
But I think those were brought specifically onto the island for that particular episode. Now, largely, the island is for spies, people who have worked within espionage, like administration, or anybody with top secret knowledge, because they've had generals, they've had colonels, they've had various stages of retirement for people and ages. So it's basically anybody that could have been loosely connected, that with any sort of knowledge that they wanted to co-opt or get that information of, that's who they put on that island. And if they accepted being a number and part of the machine, or if they were pushed back and be like, I am an individual, you can't do this shit to me, they would then focus on them and crack them. But number 6 seemed to be the one they could never quite get. You would think that would get old, but it stayed fresh enough throughout the season. And towards the latter half, they would actually start showing backstory and start exploring other aspects of number 6, and not always be the number 2 of the week. What's he going to do now?
Yeah, that kind of threw me at first. They switched number 2s in the first episode, and that was a little jarring at first. I was like, well, okay, that happened.
I think they were trying to show you how interchangeable that they would end up becoming.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't get that until, say, like the 3rd episode. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this is going to be a running thing now.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil that on you because it's important to enjoy that as you're learning it the first time through.
Yes, it made it a lot of fun, actually, to see who it was going to be or what type of person it was going to be, because it was always a different type of person. Different ethnicity, male. Once or twice it was a woman. Twice it was a woman.
Yeah.
It was really neat. Once was, God, what was it? The love child of Liberace and Buddy Holly. I think the best way I could describe him. He had blonde hair, like Liberace shaped blonde hair, but very much had like Buddy Holly style glasses that looked like the AR glasses that you see from Ray-Ban now. So, I mean, I guess they had that going for them as far as like predicting the future. And then the brick phones.
Yeah, there was a lot of wireless technology going on in this one.
There was. And see, that's kind of neat. Like, there's a lot of technology that's come from things like, well, specifically Batman 66, James Bond. More things have come to our technology from those shows. Someone's got inspired to make certain things than, say, Star Trek. So God bless the spy shows and Batman shows.
Oh, yeah, they're constantly evolving, coming up with new trinkets. You do not actually get too much of that these days with spy shows. It's more like, oh, I got a microphone the size of a pen tip, so I'm going to fit that in my pocket, and we're going to mic you up. And it's like, that's not really all that creative. You just made something smaller. What about the knife in like my hoodie here? Like I could pull out my string and at the other end is a knife behind everything, like, or a razor blade, and I could take you out that way.
Yeah, or have my silk shirt be 100% bulletproof, like on John Wick.
We called him Baba Yaga. He was the one you sent to kill the fucking boogeyman. Oh.
But speaking of lady number 2s, giggity. We'll call her Celia. The lady number 2 that had the short hair and dressed like Peter Pan.
Oh, I call her the Robin Hood number 2.
Yeah, that works too. Golly, she was kind of cute for an older lady. I don't know why.
I know, right?
One of those things. It's like, well, Kevin, she's not. You're not.
Maybe he likes older women.
No, just
no.
Most
of the women in this show are very stunning. They are very beautiful.
Yes, in the very same sense of the guest ladies or dancers on Batman would be, yes, absolutely, or Bond girls.
True. We didn't get any honey in this one though.
H-Renee. No Jaws. Now, were there like great cameos as far as like British actors go? I didn't really recognize anybody.
I'm a horrible British television film buff. Not much of one to begin with. So I couldn't really say who was a great cameo or not.
Yeah, like I looked at every episode and I tried to like skip ahead, say like we do for who's going to be in an episode of Briscoe County Jr. this week.
Right.
No, there was nothing that I could find of that sort.
Not like some of the faces didn't seem a little familiar, but like anytime I looked at anybody that I thought looked familiar, the only thing I saw continuously was Doctor Who.
Oh, that could be.
So it's like, this person was in Doctor Who. This person was in Doctor Who. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, can I find somebody who was in like James Bond later on or something like that? I mean, other than Patrick, like everybody, maybe more British fans would be like, oh, hey, this person's in like this show, and that movie. I'd be like, okay, I get it. But like for us across the pond, it's kind of hard to follow along with that kind of a history unless you're really into British cinema. Now, my wife, she's like big into like Monty Python, things of that nature. There might have been some people in this show that later appeared in any of those that she would be like, oh, that person, I know that person. He was in like Faulty Towers or whatever.
Yeah. Say like if a young Billy Connolly walked in on this show, I wouldn't recognize him.
Yeah.
Shit, almost anybody from the Monty Python Flying Circus, anyone that wasn't part of the core cast, I wouldn't recognize.
If they would have been open to it, I would have been totally down if I would have ever seen John Cleese as a number 2.
That would have been rad.
That would have been freaking dope. Just saying.
I really liked one of the number twos, and they brought him back, and I'm glad. Well, there was only 2 number twos, I think, that
Was it the goatee guy or was it the mustache guy with the glasses?
the goatee guy, the guy with the glasses. I was more than happy to see him go.
Yeah, Mr. Putz.
He was kind of an asshole. I wasn't really vibing on him. He was a good bad guy, but he was an asshole. The third number 2, the guy from episode 2, from Chimes of Big Ben, he was a good bad guy because he wasn't necessarily bad. He was one of the guys treating number 6 with respect. Like the same with the lady. She knew the value of an asset. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was trying to get him to say what they wanted him to say and then get him to stay.
Right.
So that way, like, he would never be not expendable. He would never be a danger of being captured and tortured and tell some secret.
Right.
Yeah. Or wouldn't be able to go and sell secrets, which they were very concerned he was doing.
Correct.
So can we just say it was MI6 the whole fucking time that did this shit?
Very likely, because a lot of whenever they would release him back to England or London, he'd always get brought back and they all seem to know about it. So it's like, you bastards are doing this to your own people. I did not feel like they were on the evil side, even though at a couple of points in the show, he's like, I don't think my side would do this. I think it's actually the other side. But that other side was always kind of like super vague and never stated. I'm willing to bet he knew, like, this is my people doing this shit because they're the only ones who know I'm retired.
Yeah. And would be curious as to why, because in the previews, or not the previews, the intro, which was the same every episode, 3 minutes, would show him just slap down his resignation, argue with somebody, and then storm out.
Yep.
So of course they'd be concerned. Like the Cold War, everyone was suspicious as hell.
Right. And they wanted to make sure what was really going on, what his secrets were, yada, yada, yada. And the only way that it would be different in that intro at the end of 3 minutes is basically in the last 30 seconds where you are introduced to the new number 2. But there were times they wouldn't actually show any opening and it would just jump right into the episode.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That was a little off-putting because I was always like away. Like, okay, I've got 3 minutes to go grab something to eat and come back.
Yeah, I would go to hit the fast forward button and be like, oh shit, that's actually the episode. I can't do that. I'd be like, crap.
That's
like,
where you just
why am I
wait for
3
skip
minutes
intro.
in and I don't know what the hell's going on? Shit, I haven't watched this show in like 10 years.
I am gonna pick it up. I liked it. Yeah. It's a very tedious show. Like they did not make way for any commercials whatsoever. Like it's almost the entire hour, which is nice, but you need to be prepared. Like you're gonna sit down and think for that hour.
Yep.
And it is like there's a lot going on to where there's a long point of action, but there's a lot of buildup and story leading up to that action, the third act, for lack of a better term. And it's really quite worth it, like getting to that point.
Yeah, the show does reward you for your patience and your investment in it. By the time you get to the end of this series, the last 2 episodes, you're like, by the end of like episode 16, when they basically ask them, you have now won. What do you want to do? I want to meet number 1. Okay, sir. I'm taking you to meet number 1. It's like, hey, wait a minute. What? We're really fucking doing this?
Yeah, right. Like that.
But they spend like the first like half of like episode 17 like teasing it for a while, and then they finally get around to it. But
yeah, and then you find out that number 1 is just Kevin from She-Hulk. And I was like, fuck, they ripped that shit off too. God damn.
Well, they totally mislead you because initially he's sitting on the throne with the machine just to the behind him with the number 1 over the little glowing green eye. And it's like, what the fuck? It's really a machine? You end up finding out it's really not a machine. It's just somebody back there is communicating through the machine to the judge.
Oh.
Because he, in that room with the globes, he removes the mask of the guy like 2 or 3 times before he sees the real crazy face, and it's actually him underneath all those masks. Yeah. If you slow it down, it's actually number 6 behind all of those masks.
That makes sense, because
goes crazy, leaves, and then you never see a thing about that ever. So, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know what the hell happens at the end of this show, skip the next like 10 minutes. But it's well worth watching, and it's very rewarding. And it leaves, like I said, this ending leaves a lot closed, but also open at the same time, because you never see that guy ever again. And how it ends, it makes you wonder, was this all in his head? Was this not in his head? Or because the door opens at the end of the episode with the same sound as it is on the island, did he really not leave the island? Is he still on the island and this is a new hallucination or something? Because they fucked with his head so much in this show, and also fucked with you as the audience, that you're like, son of a bitch, he didn't really get out, did he? Makes you wonder. It makes you ask questions. It makes you want to rewatch it again and try and pick up other details. This is one of those rare shows that it's going to ask, you're going to want to rewatch it probably twice just to pick up on things you weren't catching before. And you do pick up more details every time you rewatch it.
Yeah. And it's, golly, it's just, it's fun to put these weird puzzle pieces together. Like there's his friend. God, what was his name? I have it here somewhere. Like Cobb.
Oh, Cobb. Yeah. Who totally fucked him over.
Yeah. You see him in the pilot, but then he comes back once or twice later on, doesn't he? Like he's dead.
I think he came back in the flashback episode, if I remember right. But ultimately he was dead in the present tense, but he ended up leaving the island being like, what is my next assignment?
Yeah, like it was no thing. Like, well, I just fucked over my friend. Time to go home and bone his wife too.
Yeah, and he was basically saying, he's going to be a tough nut to crack. Good luck with that. Yeah. And he's like, bye. I got nothing to do with this no more. I did my part. Like, wow, fucker. You got no friends in this community.
And at the same time, you're kind of like, why not just tell them? I got tired of fucking doing this shit. I don't want to fucking kill people no more.
Well, he ultimately said for peace. And anytime you ever really got any real answer was probably in the 16th episode, where for a minute he broke down just enough to be like, I just wanted to keep the peace. There's too many secrets. Too many people would get hurt. I just wanted to keep things fair between everybody. It's like you got a little tease, but they didn't give you enough to really be like, okay, did he accidentally kill somebody? Did somebody destroy a country? Did he create an upheaval and a dictator took over? Like, what happened? It still remains unclear, even to most people. I think if you dip into like internet theories and whatnot about like what really caused him to do it, there's some better theories out there than what we probably got.
Oh, see, I like to think it's some John Wick type thing, like a girl
killed his dog.
Oh, well, maybe. Preferably not. Like, he wants to live to remember a girl or some shit. I don't know. Not the dog. The dog didn't.
Nah.
Kill the lady instead.
Kill the bitch. Kidding. Just kidding.
There went half of our listeners.
And goodbye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Fuck that sexist every goddamn week. I'm sorry, y'all.
No, you're not.
I'm not. Speaking of which, there was quite a bit of misogyny in this. That part of the 60s was in this as well. Let's see, what was the quote that I wrote down? Never trust a woman, not even the four-legged kind. My jaw hit the floor for a moment or two. Took a good long time to pick it back up.
I know, I heard it all the way down here in Arizona.
Like, I had to make sure my wife didn't hear that. Like, Jesus Christ.
That'll learn you.
I don't want to die.
Or have a belt collar on you from now on.
Cone of shame.
Shame.
Oh shit. But yeah, that was fucked up. Like every girl was kind of a damsel in distress for him to save until they were villainous. And then most of them were not really all that great. I mean, maybe Mrs. Buttersworth. Was it Mrs. Buttersworth? Yeah. It was either that or Aunt Jemima. I couldn't tell which one it was, but it was Mrs. Buttersworth. Yeah, she was kind of a funky spy, but she wasn't really all that great in the end. Not like the French maid. Not only was she dressed like a French maid throughout the entire episode, and she didn't speak any English, which was really nice because you couldn't tell what she was saying. You didn't want her to be quiet necessarily. And then at the end, like she's kind of telling him how to run everything and then starts slapping him in the face. And it was really kinky. And I'm like, is this how a thing starts? Like, I kind of like
could have been. We don't kink shame. We don't kink shame.
I'm not opposed to watching him get his ass kicked, but
unless there's some whips and chains involved and it suddenly went X-rated, like, whoa.
Oh, she was just flat out cold cocking his chin. I was like, oh god damn. Or his jawline. But yeah, she was a lot of fun. I don't recall the actress's name, but she was actually quite a delight to watch. When she was supposed to be being surprised by any time pressing a button in number 2's office to see what it would do. Like it would turn on the wall of TVs. And she's like, oh, I just made that happen via magic.
Yeah.
It was cute. And then the show got progressive, speaking of which, because when he finally escapes, he's found by a gypsy family. And his boss, when he's explaining that to me, he's like, oh, and you found some gypsy family found you and fed you. He's like, they were Romany. And you're like, yeah, fucker, get it right. You racist bitch.
I'll call John Wick if you don't like it, motherfucker.
Right. But I was kind of like, wow, in the 60s, they were actually kind of politically correct for that. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. The show was pretty smart.
Yeah, it really was. It was smart. It was fun. I wouldn't say it was fun-y, but it does make you laugh.
Yeah, there's definitely moments that'll make you laugh. Unintentional humor most of the time.
Yes, or very tongue-in-cheek. Like where they're talking about voting and how they have a democratic society on the island there. And he's like, oh yes, everyone votes for the dictator.
It's pretty clear who's going to win this contest.
Yeah, like it was so tongue-in-cheek. Like, yeah, I guess that's true. Everybody that's alive is the ones that fucking voted for the dictator. This island does kind of go that way, depending upon who's in charge. And let's be fair, this island has a very high turnover rate of employment.
Yep, people get let go and brought back sometimes. It's who wants to work for that number one? Total shit show is what's going on over there.
I still thought it was Kevin. I thought it was a machine. I was like, well, that's kind of anticlimactic.
No, it's just Bob Iger trying to find somebody to run the company again.
I need another studio to stand here and hold this while I go and stand and hold that and make this movie happen.
Here, Touchstone, Bayern Vista. One of you idiots come on over here and hold up this sign. Yeah, I know I got your movies in the back catalog, but fuck off. You're my new number 2. Oh, wait, there's a proxy fight? Shit.
We've got Thor on Baby's Adventures in Babysitting, so we could use that shit too. And it's Vincent D'Onofrio, who's also under our contract right now, so we could use that shit again.
Yeah, and if you don't like that, we'll just hire Mark Ruffalo to talk about politics again and turn everybody off this podcast.
Actually, I think he's the only person that probably is under contract right now, D'Onofrio. Anyway, that's for when we stop recording again. Yeah, they changed their business practices. So that's never mind.
Don't mind us. We just like having fun on our podcast.
It's true. It's true. Anyway, speaking of MCU, one of the things this first reminded me of, because I'm sitting there writing notes, entire island monitored. Wow, this is kind of like Loki. It really kind of is, where it's like it's kind of like the TVA, where you see a lot of dictatorship that's supposed to be smiley and happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of propaganda on the loudspeakers, the radio, where it's almost like a DJ for the local radio station, for lack of a better term, but it's just propaganda reminding
Right.
people of how to be and how to act and how to think. And that was kind of powerful for back then. That was the thing. Like, people still get controlled that way in Korea.
Right. Multiple other countries around the world too. So, you know, you can look at this show. You could say it's a bit timeless at times too, with the messages it puts out there and like the control. Do you want to be an individual? Do you want to be part of a greater cog, part of the machine? You know, what are you, a number or a free person? You free thinking? You want somebody else to do your thinking for you. And that's how this show could still be watched today. And you can find something about it from the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. Any year that you would watch this, there's something you can pick out of this that it'll make you think. It'll make you think about things that, you know, how you view like politics. It could be how you view your own personal life goals, like your workplace. Like, do you want to work in a corporation? Do you want to own your own fucking business? Or do you just want to do something else entirely? This show will hit you on a lot of different levels, depending on where you're at with your life and how you feel about things now. So that's why I would always recommend this show.
That, and for me personally, like, I like having seen this now and understanding references to other things, like in Austin Powers, it's an homage to things like this. Again,
oh yeah,
I didn't have most of the knowledge of what the jokes were. I mean, granted, they're funny one way or the other, but all the references and shit that were not James Bond, that were this or in like Flint, I'm starting to get those now, and I'm kind of like, oh, it's funnier now.
yeah.
So,
it's when somebody finally explains the joke, and you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, or like we were talking about the wardrobe looking just like Batman 66. They all look like the henchmen. And they really did. They look like fucking gondola drivers in Venice or some shit with striped shirts.
Port Merion, where they shot the show. Just
Is that where?
Think of that? Yep.
There was
Wales, I believe.
Oh,
and they actually did not want the and they actually didn't want the location announced until the final episode because they didn't want people showing up there till the very end. That was kind of if I remember correct, that was part of the contract that Port Merion had with the show of, don't tell people where this was shot until the final episode when you're done shooting and everything's wrapped.
But we want the economy now.
Well, they probably weren't hurting, and I'd be very curious what the place looks like now, to be honest. If I can ever cross the pond, that is a place I would be very interested in checking out because it looks very beautiful from all the shots.
Oh yeah,
especially the overhead shots of the town and the village and everything. It looked great. I'd love to go check it out.
Yeah, I want to crack a joke, but it's not really a joke. The stock footage that they used in this show was actually really nice.
This is the best use of stock footage you could ever have in a show. This is how you do it right.
Yeah, like it wasn't putting in all these weird scenes just to make a longer movie or a longer episode. They would actually be using stock footage shots of the actual place where they're filming.
Yep.
Or actual parts of London where they were supposed to be going. And it was cool.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know why, knowing that their people was behind the whole thing in general. Like, they're the ones that put them on the island or the village. Why go there at the end? I don't know. I think it's to keep the answer that maybe it's not them all the way. I don't know.
Yeah. That definitely opens up that discussion point.
That could bring you into a whole discussion point where you bring in like the ideology of Metal Gear.
Oh, I see what you're called. Yeah.
Governments behind governments.
Shadow government.
Yes.
And there goes our podcast. Get it canceled. Ah!
Yeah, pretty much. Do they have a whole lot of shadow government type stuff on here? I want to say yes, but no, they were all pretty open and honest about fucking them in the head.
Yeah.
Which again, just fucking say, I'm tired of working for you. I don't want to do this shit.
I never needed this job, and I don't want this job anymore. I quit.
Well, that's not sufficient. They wanted some hard answers. I don't think they would have taken any of that shit to be true. They wanted to torture it out of him somehow, whether it was coercion or straight torture. Like, they wanted an answer one way or the other, and they weren't going to be okay with, I just don't want to do this anymore.
I just want to bake cupcakes.
But, you know, something like this also is another reason why a show like Burn Notice came around much later. It's like, what happens to a spy when they resign or get fired? And you don't get too much out of that with a lot of shows throughout the years. And the more modern one is Burn Notice, Jeffrey Donovan and Bruce Campbell. And I think they did a very good job. And I wouldn't say there was references to The Prisoner in the Burn Notice, but there was definitely a carryover from ideas from the show.
Well, there was one episode, it wasn't the one with the blonde guy, where they were showing that there was a plot to assassinate the old number 2 as the new number 2 was coming in. And it was
that episode.
Yeah, old number 2 is the one perpetuating that rumor, trying to make number 6 save him. But as it turned out, their people really were planning to kill him. He didn't realize it. And then he realized that, golly, they really are going to try to kill me. And he started sweating balls. He started regretting all of his life choices.
Yep. That was a great flip on that, too. Because at the moment I was thinking, what are they doing with this episode? Is this just some like long drawn out plot just to turn number 6 and get him confused and make him think he's really betraying somebody, and you know, the whole thing's just a sham or a setup? Ends up not being so. Ends up being like pretty straightforward. No, there's an assassination plot, and they're trying to kill the previous number 2 before he leaves because they don't want to pay his retirement.
They don't want to let him go. Funny.
Yeah, we don't want to pay for that. His retirement fund was going to be like £2 million. Oh my god,
his pension.
So he gets the bomb, and he's got the detonator for the bomb, which is now on the new number 2, and he's like, later bitch, I'm out of here.
Yeah. It was pretty great. And then he barreled ass, didn't he? He had the he was the other one that was super ass. Funny. I was gonna say he and the professor later.
Yeah. The professor episode where he switched the minds with everybody. I'm like, wow, there's some Star Trek level shit that I haven't seen. And it was super funny that the professor was like, you know what? I'm gonna put everybody back in their appropriate bodies except for the fucker over here.
Who won't be going home to his wife and kids today, but I'll be going home to fuck her.
Yep.
That was cool though. Because he had no place else to go. He couldn't defect anywhere. Obviously he figured out that 6 found him, or that anybody could find him at that point. So yeah, he's got this brand new athletic body anywhere he can go. But the only thing there is you're kind of like, okay, well, if they can keep turning that fucking chopper around to drop number 6 off, why can't they drop this guy off at the same time?
Because he's still at the detonator. Oh, no, with the professor?
Yeah.
I think he might have been a little more long gone by that.
Oh, quite possibly so.
Because they would this is part of the problem with how the timing would work in some episodes. Like, okay, so 3 minutes later, he's completely gone, yet within 3 minutes in other episodes, number 6 is back on the ground.
Yeah.
It was a little confusing with how they would pace certain scenes out, but back then, you know, you could suspend your disbelief just enough. But like these days, you're a little more on point with watching pacing and timing of things. I don't know. It didn't bother me too much. The only thing that what this reminds me of is the one episode where number 6 is about ready to leave, and they're asking him questions about like this guy's wife, and the wife is dead. God, what episode was that?
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. The schizophrenic man?
Yeah, the schizoid man, I believe. And basically, you know, he's getting ready to go into the helicopter, and they're like, and wish, you know, so and so, you know, wish Mimsy or whatever her name was, good health. And he's like, I will do that. And then once he lands, the number 2 basically tells him, you know, Mimsy's been dead for like a year. And it's like, oh, the second he was asking too many questions and he wasn't answering them and deflecting them, I'm like, dude, number 6, you are so fucked. You ain't getting off this island. He's asking too many questions and he keeps looking at you with a side eye.
Like, what spy doesn't know not to answer questions fucking like very specifically like that?
Right.
I know we didn't have Captain Jack Sparrow back then, but always going, you can mumble. Right. I'll tell her, you too.
I'd play it off like, I can't do that. Total spy mode. Just, I can't say anything about that. I don't talk about that.
Or just tap your nose like it's some fucking inside deal. Like, all right, man. Point and wink. Right. Something. But, I mean, if he didn't do that, then he wouldn't get back on the island, and then they didn't have the extra 10 episodes.
And show over.
Which I was really laughing come the final episode. I was like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot about that. British shows actually have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yep.
So we're not used to that. It was kind of like, oh, we actually get to see what's going to happen. That's cool. Not like, oh, we could dream and imagine what would have happened. We could ask the showrunners what would have happened.
Did you like the ending of the episode? Was it satisfying for you at least?
Yes, but it's hard for me to say if I would have just ended it at the 16th episode or gone the full 17.
Right.
The end of the 16th episode is very good. He kills the number 2. Not by choice. He dies. Yeah, one of the two of them was going to die. And did he drown himself? Is that what it was on the bourbon?
It seemed like he had a heart attack.
Yeah, they revived him come the next episode, and he was
got a clean shave and everything.
Yeah, and then God, I can't think of the word. You're gonna have to edit this.
De-aged?
No, not de-aged. Brainwash. They de-brainwashed him to be a completely different person than what he was in the second or the third and final episode.
Because he also admits like everybody on that island has been brainwashed.
Yeah. And so, I mean, he was a really neat character. He was my favorite of the number 2s.
Agreed.
So I didn't really mind seeing him come back at all. I was actually really excited for it, but didn't mind seeing the change in character either, from going from bad to good. But it was very strange, almost off-putting, having him be a completely different person and be good. I like who he was before. He was a nice guy, for all intents and purposes.
He had a sense of honor to him, which was very important.
Yes, and respect.
Yeah, because there was a time in the 16th episode where he's like, I think I'm actually starting to really like this guy. And you could tell by the inflection in his voice, like, man, I can't believe I'm fucking doing to this guy. It's either him or me. And like, fuck, I respect this guy for holding out. Like, shit, this is my fucking job. Great. Well, that episode is also a case study in how you could do a lot in a singular setting with very little.
Oh, yes, because they were just on one set with like 4 different stages of life there. And you just had to go from one to the next and tell the person, you're now in this area of your life, or in this area and this stage of your life. And it was
changing that mindset frequently on number 6. Like, okay, you're a kid. Now you're graduating high school. Now you're going for a job interview. Now you're resigning. Now you're a kid again. It's like, wow, you're really fucking with this dude. It's like, that's how you built up to that point of what more can you do to this guy? And then that's basically the cherry on top of, oh, fuck. But he also then was able to flip it around and ultimately win in the end. It's like, what more could you really do to this guy? There's nothing else.
No, there really wasn't, short of killing him, which I think they did revive him once or twice, didn't they?
Number 6?
Yeah, didn't he flatline once or twice and they had to revive him? Or was it his mind? They something like that. It was the number 2, but they'd done it before to him as well.
Okay.
I don't remember. It wasn't the one where he can only have the 3 doses of the like Rohypnol or whatever it was. Wait, no, that's that's different. I was thinking of the Hypnosil from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah, where they were doping him up so much. Yeah.
Yeah, Rohypnol's that Cosby drink.
Yeah, they certainly tried that a couple of times in the show with him. Woo.
They did.
I
love where
wrote
he's
down,
like,
boy, they gave the grape drug to him a few times, and then he got wise and gave the grape drug to this female scientist lady. And boy, was she feeling a little loose towards the end.
she was so happy. That was always fun, where it's like he would get one over on the number twos, the one that comes back that had the glasses and the mustache, where he was trying to figure out who that informant could be. And number 6 had put that number 2's face in his mind. So when they were going to see who his informant was, it turned out to be that number 2.
That was freaking outstanding.
Yeah, like I almost wanted to clap at that scene. I felt so silly, like, yeah, good on you, man. Kick ass. It was cool. But yeah, he was a neat character. I'm surprised for as well as James Bond did throughout the decades, that number 6 wouldn't have gone any further as well.
Yeah.
But the ending, the only thing I would have done differently about that was Agent 48. I didn't really care for his holodeck episode necessarily.
The young kid from the Western episode, as I call it.
Yeah, where like he's basically a kind of a sissy. And getting bitch slapped around here and there by the number 2. And then he turns around and tries to sexually assault a woman a couple times. And then they bring him back 3 episodes later and he's a good guy, but racist as fuck, doing imitations of Louis Armstrong. And you're just like, stop it, please.
Oh, that stupid song. Well, I thought he was dead in that Western episode. He must have only just knocked himself out, or they brought him back to life. Because he fell off the second story balcony.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, he leaped off. He went up top because he thought he had killed the other lady. And then he ran upstairs and fell over the balcony and landed on his face. But they could have, basically what could have happened is he could have just knocked his own ass out, hurt himself, or if he died, they brought him back to life. Because they then justified in the 17th episode, hey, we could bring people back.
Now, the allegory of what his character was supposed to be was very strange. Like, what were they trying to say about the youth of Britain at that point? Like,
that's a very good question. Like, it's happening whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
You just got to let it loose and just let it take hold and let it evolve and it'll grow up.
Kind of, yes. Like, yes, he's fresh. Yes, he's brash, but he's useful. He had use. Maybe that's what they were trying to say. He wasn't as refined as the old number 2, but he had his moments. Being racist and singing racist songs, but it was his moment.
With the bones connected to the knee bone.
I can't hear that song without hearing Dr. Nick from The Simpsons go.
There you go.
Ankle bones connected to the wristwatch.
Oh, yep. I hear it now too. Great. Now that's stuck in my head. Thanks, Kevin.
Uh-oh. But yeah, like he kept singing dim bones, and my eye just kept twitching and twitching, like hearing Foxy like the last 2 or 3 weeks. Great googly moogly, like, please stop talking like that.
Confess. The bones is yours, Dad. They came from you, my daddy. Confess. Now you hip. Hip, Dad. Hip. Confess. And a hip bone. Confess. And a thigh bone. Confess. Shin bone, knee bone. Confess. Backbone, all yours, Dad. Confess. Knee bone.
Yeah, I thought that went on just maybe a tick too long, but Patrick was writing and directing that last episode, so.
Like, why was everybody getting on singing Dim Bones? They had like this committee of spies that was going to give him his individuality, which was very theatrical. It was a cross between that episode of Star Trek with Frank Gorshin, where they had the black and white or the white and black guys, but they just complained and bickered at one another until they all started singing Dim Bones, Dim Bones, Dim Dry Bones.
That was a wild courtroom.
And all I could think of is, golly, politics in Britain are weird. Like, I know ours is a shit show, but
they weren't all wearing the wigs. That was just the judge. So.
Yeah, but he was also in a Santa Claus jacket. Did you catch that? He had the big
No.
old white cuffs.
Huh.
It was a Santa Claus jacket.
All righty then.
I interpreted it that way, but 'tis the season.
Well, Merry Christmas, Kevin.
Merry Christmas. Now I gotta go watch one of the Christmas Carol movies. I'm gonna make it Scrooged next.
Well, before you do that, do you want to get into a six-pack challenge with me, Kevin?
Round one.
I think we need to because, golly, there is a lot going on, but so much of a concise story.
Yeah.
So let's crack that son of a bitch open.
You want to go first or me?
I'll give it a shot.
Cool.
Let's see here. Let me get back. I actually typed it out so I'd remember. So I'm going to say episode 1, of course, because that's the arrival. That's where we learn what the village is, who number 6 is to a point, and why he's there.
Yep.
I went with episode number 2 next, the Chimes of Big Ben. Not so much because the story itself or what happens to him was important. That's where he thinks he's escaping. They're just letting him think that he's being mailed.
Yeah.
But because we see that new number 2 come in, and was the best of all the bad guys, I think. Next, I would have said was episode 10, and that was the Hammer to Anvil. And that's where you saw how brutal of a spy that he could be and how badly he could screw somebody over, like we said. And then I went to Living in Harmony. And again, that's our holodeck episode where they're going back into the Western times. It was really silly. It was kind of dumb, but this is where we see Agent 48 for the first time. And I can't say it's a better character than when he is Agent 48, but he doesn't sing racist songs nearly as much.
True. He actually doesn't speak for most of the episode.
Yeah, he's very shy, very quiet, very sensitive until he decides to sexually assault a girl. Yeah. Anyway, and then after that, I went Once Upon a Time. That leads up to getting our favorite number 2 back, and then really starting the what did they call it? The absolute something or other, the treatment. But they had a name for it, but they didn't tell you what it was until the very end. Like it meant one of the two of you was going to die. Like it was an absolute solution.
Right.
And we did see that number 2 did die. He broke because he couldn't break number 6. And we've seen that before in episode 10. But that all goes to episode 17, which was Fallout, where they bring back number 2. They change him back to the agent that he was before they made him number 2, which was really strange. And then we see the dissolution of the committee and the escape from the village. And it leads you to where you said at the beginning, it could be wide open. This adventure is over, but 6 could go anywhere from this point. He could go on vacation. He could go hide out. He could do anything. Number 2, I think, went home, and number 3 or number 48 went to go be in a band called Earth.
Or join the Beatles. Who knows?
Earth was Black Sabbath before they went metal.
There you go.
Sorry. But anyway, that's my 6-pack challenge.
Round 2.
Cool. I have a pretty similar list. I'm easily going to go with the first 2 episodes. They almost play like a great little pilot for what the show has going on, what you're going to get with this show, and overall just great sense of, mystery, suspense. Let's fucking go. And I love the constant changing of the number 2s. That's really awesome as far as I'm concerned. After that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw in my little honorable mention. This is going to be more of 7 for me, but this one does not technically need to be in my 6-pack. So that's only why I'm mentioning it, because it's in a bit of a chronological order here. I like episode 7, Many Happy Returns, where the village is basically abandoned. And there's little to no dialogue for most of the show. He actually escapes from the island, and he ends up getting back to the island through an insane method of, hey, we're going to go find the island. I'm going to fly the plane myself with another co-pilot. And he gets ejected out of the plane. He lands. And once he lands, he's returned to, hi, number 2, I'm back. And he's got this look at the very end of, God damn it, you motherfuckers. Like, fuck, he has this just utter fuck off look with these guys. And there's really not much to the episode outside that. I think it's just a great look and like, fuck you guys.
That was my extra mention and nod as well. And my reasoning was because that's where you first get the inkling that it really is MI6 that's fucking with him.
Yeah, like there is really no escape. You think you can go home, you really can't go home again.
Yeah, like they put you on that chopper to go look for it. They knew that they were sending you back.
Yeah.
They were just upset that you got out.
Right. And they've teased multiple times through the show before that and after that, like, you think you can go back, you can't go back because everybody that you think you know is not on your side.
Yeah, and you find out that these shadow organizations are not that shadowy. They're right out in there in the bright sunshine.
Yep, they're not exactly hiding. Hide in plain sight.
Like that convalescent home.
Oh my God, right?
I see a bunch of old spies with their ostomy bags.
Yeah, pretty much. But, following that up, I'm going to go with episode 10, Hammer into Anvil. That's a pretty fun episode. We've already gone into that. We'd actually go right on into episode 11, which is It's Your Funeral. The episode where it was the older number 2 versus the newer number 2 with the time bomb and everything. And I really liked that one. There was just a whole lot of joy actually seeing a number 2 wanting to get the fuck out and actually working with number 6 so that keeps you on your toes about what's going on with this show. And you can't always figure out, hey, I know where it's going next. You might think what's going to happen next happens in the next episode, but the one after that, that'll get you. But then sometimes they'll do it back to back, and that's one of the really joys of this show is it does keep you on your toes. You think you know where it's going, and it keeps shifting on you. So it continually makes you think. And then basically I'm going to wrap up with the last 2 episodes of the show. 16 is utterly fantastic. It's a lesson in how you could do a lot with so little in a show. And the cast is outstanding, even to the butler.
Yeah, and may I just say, on a level of ableism, no one likes bullying short people, number 6. Quit being a fucking asshole.
Well, he ends up becoming number 6's butler.
Yeah, because
he wins the game. But
he wins the game, but also 6 did treat him with respect.
Yep.
Yeah, he bullied him most of the time, but once he got to that area, he wasn't like picking on him or hitting on him or anything like that like the other 2s did.
Well, and the butler was actively trying to help him too at multiple times. Like when he was looking for where number 1 went off to, he kind of looked off to the corner, and then he'd also start beating some ass too. And he actually drove the bus that got him off the island back to England.
Yeah.
So I really like that concept, and I love the final episode. I feel like it runs a little long, the first like 20, 30 minutes, but ultimately it ends so well that I can look past that little misstep for how long it drug out, especially with Dem Bones. But it ended with a very fun Beatles song. Number 6 drives off in his sweet little Lotus, and the butler goes to the automatic door opening to flat number 1, which is his apartment designation, making me think he has been number 1 the entire time, or this was all in his head, and he's still trapped on the island.
I don't know, but it's cool either which way.
Every time I watch it, I kind of feel like one way or the other. And I know we were on Twitter and we had some pretty good feedback about like what people thought who number 1 really is, and it was interesting, but I don't have that in front of me, or I'd mention it again. So
I still want to call Mrs. Butterworth Aunt Jemima. She's lucky she didn't scratch the car. Like that Lotus was his baby.
Well, yeah, there was multiple people driving that freaking car of his, and I'm surprised he didn't kill anybody on sight about that.
I'm surprised they didn't kill anybody driving the son of a bitch. It looked dangerous.
True. Oh, wait, maybe I can find that real quick. Okay, so for a real quick social media, we have Eric Sullivan on Twitter. He wrote, "Hope you caught the 2017 documentary In My Mind. It's great. It gave me insight to better understand the finale. We will have to try and check that out." Eric Fell wrote, yes, I love The Prisoner. I watch many Happier Returns every year on my birthday. That's one of my episodes, and so is one of Kevin's. Then we have Yum Yum Pod, our buddy podcast down in Aussie. Aussie. Thing about The Prisoner to appreciate is how genuinely funny it is. Number 6 has so many great quips. The female number 2 dressing up as Peter Pan is just a wonderfully campy thing to behold.
I thought she was cute. I
thought she was too. Not gonna lie.
I don't have a thing for quote unquote older chicks, but now that I'm an older dude, I guess it's okay.
As long as you don't start screaming, mommy.
Mommy. Yuck. Paging Dr. Freud. We'll talk more about that on Sunday.
Right. Oh, and lastly, I had asked Eric O'Sullivan what he thought of who number 1 might be, and his response was there was a photo that McGoohan gave to Leo McKern in which he autographed with a cryptic line, 2 + 6 + 8 = 1. And he wrote, this is what helped me understand the finale. 8 would be Alexis Kenner's kid, or number 48. Number 1 was all 3, like the riddle of the Sphinx. Young, prime of life, and old.
Ah.
Aha.
All right. So, yeah, it's kind of like Anthony Burgess writing Clockwork Orange.
Ooh, excellent.
See? Fuck you guys. I know shit.
Yeah.
There's a 21st chapter to Clockwork Orange that's not in the book, or not in the movie. And it's basically him becoming an adult, getting his shit together.
Okay. Got anything else for us, Kevin, before we wrap it up?
No, I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Awesome. Hope everybody enjoyed listening to this episode. We had a hell of a fun time talking about it. It's a great show. Recommended to everybody. You can find this on Amazon Prime or on Freevee. The first couple of episodes are going to come with commercials. Once you make it past about episode 3 or 4, commercials drop off. If you're trying to find that Blu-ray set, it's a little pricey. You still can get the DVDs. They're still excellent quality as well. We're going to have links in the description below. We are part of the Amazon affiliate program, so if you click those links, if you finish that order, great. That'll kick us back a few cents, or if you just happen to buy something else and you finish that order, that works too. Just if you click that link, it kicks us back a little bit of pennies to help pay for the hosting of our podcast. So thank you, Screamers. We'll see you next time. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at SunsAndShadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.
I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered.